Hi, have you ever used expressions in After Effects? Well, you should because they will help you save a lot of time. Here are 5 expressions that I use quite frequently, starting off with number 5, the time expression. To be honest, the time expression is no-brainer. You can literally control time with it. To add an expression, in our case, the time expression, you need to press Alt and click on the keyframe icon to enable the expressions for that particular property. The time expression is so versatile you can add it anywhere. For instance, if you want your circle to grow at a steady rate with each passing second, you can multiply the scale with time. You can also add it to position, opacity, and whatever you think of. You can even mix it up with other complex scripts to get it to work for you. More on this later. Number 4. Wiggle. The wiggle expression does exactly what you think it does.
Yeah, boy.
Well, maybe not to that extent. Using the wiggle expression will allow you to move your assets about with a set amount of frequency and amplitude. It basically means by how much and in which speed. To use the wiggle expression, simply hold Alt whilst clicking at the keyframe icon and type wiggle. Open small braces and you will need 2 values for it. The first being the frequency value, which defines how much the motion should occur, and then the amplitude value, which defines how much motion to add. As an example, if I want this circle to move around rapidly, I can make the frequency and amplitude values quite large. But if I want it to be quite subtle, I can go into the decimals and make it so. It is generally useful to randomize movements for your background elements that you don't need to have precise control over. You can also wiggle the object's opacity, its size, and so on. Number 3. valueAtTime. Things are starting to get quite interesting, and a tad bit complex as well. The valueAtTime expression retrieves the value of a particular property at that specific point in time. I generally use it to create trail effects for my positional movement and my rotation. Let's see how we can use it to create this trail effect. The first thing you want to do is find an object that you want to add the trail to. In my case, it is this circle which I have created. I will animate its position and loop it. Now, we want this circle to have a trailing effect. In order to do that, let's duplicate it. I will name this trail 1. You can delete any existing expressions if there are any. Now, we can go back to the trail 1 layer and let's add a couple of lines of code. First, we want to show which layer to trail. So, let's write this comp.layer, and in my case, as I have my main layer named circle precomp, I will write it as such. So, this comp.layer, open parenthesis, quotation mark, circle precomp, and close both of them. Now, we want to get its position. So, I will add dot transform dot position towards the end. Finally, it is time for the valueAtTime expression. So, we will write it as such. Open parenthesis, and now we can get our time value. And to trail it, we will give it a short delay. So, let's add minus 0.1 to it. Close parenthesis, and we are done. However, if you duplicate this, you will have to keep going back and forth and editing each expression in each layer. We don't want to do that, do we? We want to make sure that the trailing effects will work however many times we decide to duplicate our object. In order to do that, let's create a null. I will name this delay underscore controller, and I will add a slider controller effect to it. We will then go back to the layer that we had duplicated and add a few more lines to it. First, let's create a variable and name it delay. We will initialize it and reference it to the slider controller in the null. So, write this comp.layer, open parenthesis, quotation mark, delay underscore controller, as it is the layer that we want to access. Then, to access its slider component, we will add dot effect, open parenthesis, quotation mark, slider control, close parenthesis, and the property that we want is the slider property. This will allow us to control the trail with this slider. Now in our next line, we will make some adjustments. First, let's delete the layer name bit and replace it with index -1. So what it basically does is, as index, it will count the layer number. If the original layer is on layer 5, it will access layer number 4. Please note, the original layer must always be at the top and the trail layer should be at the bottom, serially. Then, at the end, instead of reducing the time with a static value, we can add the delay variable and control it on the fly. Press enter and duplicate your layers as much as you want. Your effect is complete. And breathe. If you are liking this content, you can help me out by simply liking and subscribing. If not, leave a comment on how I can improve. Thank you. Number 2, lookAt expression. Now, onto our most complex expression for the day. This expression has a very niche use case, but I use it more often than not. If you want an object to always face another object, you can use this expression. The lookAt expression works best with 3D layers, so you might want to use it for that only. It takes two values, the orientational value of the main object and the position of the target object. So, you can simply make your main object and the target object 3D. And in the main object, you can write lookAt open parenthesis orientation. This will get you the orientation of the main object, comma, this comp dot layer. Inside the quotation mark, you can write target dot position. This will access the position of the target object. After you press enter, your object will follow the target layer smoothly and it will always orient towards it. However, what can be done for a 2D layer? As you can see here, the circle is facing towards the target, which in this case is the black circle. To do this, first add an object that you want to add the expression to, and then add a target object. The target object is the one the main object will face towards. Alt-click on the rotation of the main object, which is, in my case, this red circle with a triangle on top. Now, you need to outline the target layer and an angle of rotation to orient your asset. First, write target equals to this comp dot layer and add your target layer. So, in my case, it will be target, and we want to get its position to look towards it. We will add dot position towards the end. Add a semicolon and then define a new variable, angle rotate. This will define the angle to rotate. We will initialize this to a slider property. So add a null. I will name this null slider null, and I will add the slider control effect to it. Now, coming back to the original layer, I'll reference this slider here. So, just like before, you can write this comp dot layer slider null. This will reference the null layer, and dot effect slider control will refer it to the slider control property. And finally, to finish things up, you can write slider to access its slider properties. Finally, we can use the values to calculate the direction where the object should point. Just write radians to degrees. Open parenthesis, math dot a10 2. And now you will need the angle to rotate. So write target big braces 1 minus position big braces 1, comma, target big braces 0 minus position big braces 0, and end with a small parenthesis. This will make your object face the target object. If there is any problem with the target angle, you can simply add the rotational angle at the back with a plus angle rotate. This will make your object always look towards your target. Finally, number 1, loopOut. This is perhaps one of my most used expressions and I love it so much. Loop-out, or its counterpart loop-in, will just loop your animation between your keyframes. There are 3 different styles of looping, the first being a continuous loop, where you can continue the animation of an object forever. For instance, this pentagon does a 180-degree rotation during its 1-second animation. You can make this action continuous by adding loopOut parenthesis continue, and it will follow the same animation continuously forever. If you want to loop a certain range of motion, you can use either cycle or ping pong. If you want the animation to finish a keyframe and snap back and start from the first keyframe, you can use cycle. However, if you want the animation to go back and forth between keyframes, you can use ping pong. I generally use ping pong expression to loop between my keyframes. Well, that's about it. Which expressions do you want to see next? Leave a comment below and I will work on it for the next video. Bye-bye.